So though we might be at the midpoint way of the week, that has not stopped the college football recruiting news from coming down the pipe. And today, we need to turn our attention to Norman, Oklahoma, where coming off of a weekend where the Oklahoma Sooners hosted their premier recruiting event, the ChampUBBQ, OU has picked up two commitments we need to talk about, but we also need to talk about a question I've been asked several times since ChampUBBQ, and today, we're going to talk about it all. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe the Oklahoma Sooners are about to go on a recruiting run? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions are massive to content creators such as myself in both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm, and we are less than 1,000 subscribers away from our 20,000 subscriber mark. I'd love to have you a part of this unbelievable community. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And for those of you that have been around the channel for any extended period of time, you'll know anytime there are these group commitments, we typically start on the defensive side of the ball because I'm a little bit biased to the defensive side of the ball. If you're asking me which side of the ball I'm going to sit down and be more excited to watch, 9 times out of 10, my answer is going to be defense. And with that in mind, we need to talk about a big time win that Oklahoma got over the likes of the Miami Hurricanes for 4-star linebacker out the state of North Carolina, James Nesta. Now, James Nesta is, like I said, a 4-star prospect coming just outside the 24/7 Sports Composite Top 300, specifically sitting at number 373. He stands 6'4", 205 pounds, and there is a lot to like about his game. Really, no shortage of things that we can talk about. He is athletic, he is explosive, he has versatility, and I think when we look at this, this is the type of linebacker Brent Venables wants, which is another thing we need to talk about. We have got to acknowledge that Brent Venables is a linebacker guy, so I'm going to trust his assessment and his judgment when he sees a guy and says, hey, that's someone who could come into our room and really help what we do here. So James Nesta is going to be someone we have got to keep an eye on, but there also is something else interesting whenever we're talking about Nesta. He's not only a standout on the football field, he's a standout on the baseball field. And to me, that's always super interesting. We know how difficult it is, and if you frequented the channel, you know I always talk about how difficult it is to make the jump from high school football to college football because there's so much new. You're a college student now. You don't have mom and dad there, and you're trying to figure out your life outside of making the jump from high school football to college football. Well, I think it's always awesome to hear when we hear about those guys who are not only going to make that jump from high school to college, not only going to make the jump from high school football to college football, but they're going to be dual sport athletes in college. If I'm not mistaken, he is a standout pitcher, so this is absolutely going to be something we have to watch. Look, before we move on to the offensive addition that Oklahoma got, one thing we need to understand is if we look at Brent Venables, whenever he first got to Clemson, it took him a few years to get that Clemson defense right. And the answer as to why is quite simple. It takes time to implement the scheme Brent Venables wants to implement. It takes time to stack the talent he wants with the versatility that he wants. The theme of this is it takes time, and for Oklahoma fans, patience is needed right now. Brent Venables is starting to stack wins on the defensive side of the ball. He's starting to get his guys, but he needs to be allowed the time to do so. Now, I understand the move to the SEC is right on the horizon, and that's accelerated this clock, but at the end of the day, with the existence of the transfer portal, that's also made what these coaches can do a little bit more interesting to watch, so something we're going to have to keep in mind. But now we need to turn our attention to the offensive side of the ball, where the Oklahoma Sooners went into a state they frequent, the state of Texas, and got a 3-star wide receiver, Dozie Ezukanma. Now, Ezukanma stands 6'2", 180 pounds per 24/7 Sports Composite. When you turn on the film, he's active in pretty much, well, every facet of his offense. He's on special teams. He's getting active blocking. And I know that might sound like a small thing, like, Ty, you're really sitting here talking about a wide receiver and his ability to block. Yes, I am. Because in college football, we've seen guys taken out of games, guys that are very talented wide receivers because they do not know and understand how to block. That is absolutely something you will be asked to do on the next level. So I always appreciate it when they're asked to do it on the high school level and can do it with any level of efficiency. So I loved seeing that. He was active in the deep ball. He was active in the intermediate game. He was active in the short routes. He is a very talented wide receiver. And one thing I want to focus on when we talk about this is a guy that camped with Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners. This is a guy that went to Oklahoma and impressed the coaching staff. And on top of all that, Emmett Jones actually coached his older brother at Texas Tech. So there is that connection there. This actually gets me into the last thing I wanted to talk about, answering a question I've been asked several times. And I've been asked several variations of this question, but the common theme of the question is, should Oklahoma fans be worried about how they sit in recruiting? They're currently sitting just outside the top 30 recruiting classes in the nation, even with these two additions, and people are starting to ask whether or not that should be a sign of concern. And personally, I think the answer is no. We're in June. We saw Oklahoma go on a huge run last July, and they're involved in battles for top-tier prospects. But one thing we do know about these 5 stars, they can take their battles the distance. So that's something we have got to acknowledge. At the end of the day, one thing we need to understand about the way that Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners recruit is that it's a little bit different. Brent Venables is big on, like other coaches, like a Nick Saban we've talked about, getting the guys to campus and watching them camp, where the staff can make their own evaluation, and then they can compile their own list. They want to see them live, in person, put them through their own drills so that they can understand the type of football player they're looking at. So whenever we see Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners start off their recruiting class a little slow, I'm not surprised in the least, because first and foremost, like I just said, they want to see the guys camp in front of them, and secondly, Brent Venables has a no-visit policy whenever you commit to Oklahoma. Now, he encourages guys, hey, if you still want to go take other visits, please, by all means, go take other visits. We'll remain in contact. We're going to still recruit you. But if you're ready to commit, that means no more visits happen after you give us the commitment. And because of that, guys are going to be more inclined to stretch out the process. Guys are going to be less inclined to instantly pull the trigger, because it means that they no longer have the freedom to go check out a college football game if they would like to. They no longer have the freedom to do several other things that other prospects will continue to freely enjoy. So I don't think it's problematic that Oklahoma starts slow. I think it's very natural when you look at the way they recruit. And if you think that policy is problematic, you can feel how you want about the policy. At the end of the day, it still landed them a top 10 recruiting class in the nation last year, and the year before that whenever Brent Venables got there. So the policy is something that's not hampering their ability to recruit, and as long as they're getting their guys in, look, at the end of the day, I think it's a policy that helps Brent Venables get the type of player he would like in, and it's tough to argue with that. So do I think the Oklahoma fans need to be concerned about the state of recruiting right now? No, I don't. Now, if we get into October and you're still sitting outside the top 30, you're still sitting outside the top 20, we can have a conversation then. Then I will be open and I will lead the charge on the conversation. But until then, it is way too premature to think about any of this, because we've seen teams go on runs during the summer, and right now these prospects are right in the meat of when they're taking their visits. A lot of these guys won't be taking visits anymore after the summer starts, because they'll be wanting to focus on football and their senior season. So this next month is going to be big for the Oklahoma Sooners. I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.